I'm going to show you how to set up the camera with a different setup. Well, on it, actually, the all the options are the same, but the how to control the camera, how to move around and rotate the camera around is different, and everything else is the same. So for that, before we do that, let's click this curve and put it into one layer, and let's hide that. And then let's also select this camera and then put it into another layer, and then let's hide that as well, so that there's nothing else but the sphere and the terrain. And let's create the camera this time by going into the rendering tab, and then select the this camera icon to create the new camera. And if you go to outliner, you will see this camera 2 is created, and this is camera 2 indeed. But then it's the same as the first camera. So how can we change the this camera to a different type? Just simply by going to opening the attribute editor of the new camera, and then changing that to changing this control. If you select that, you will see different types of camera, and then just simply by choosing camera and aim, and then as soon as you do that, you will see this new thing just appeared. This is the aim control, and it's basically a point of interest. And you see this camera too. Just change it to group, and then underneath that group there is a camera, and then there's a aim control. So by moving this aim control, you can, as you can see here, you can rotate the camera around. And then if you select this camera and then go to the channel box, and then you can see rotate XYZ is constrained to this aim control. So basically you have to move rotate this camera by moving this aim control around. Okay, so which means so you probably get the idea already what you can do with this. And let me move this outliner to the side, and then let's see. So for this one, I'm going to split the this panel into two, and then I'm going to select this panel perspective and then camera 2, so that I can see what I'm seeing through the camera, so which will be much helpful to compose a scene. So let's see. For this one also, I'm going to turn on the resolution gate, so this will be what you will get when you render this scene. And as you can see here, and this you can change from render settings. I think that will be for later classes, not for this class, I believe. So so if you see it here, there's a camera, and then there's a aim control, and then oops, and then and then if I design the scene like this, using this this angle, this part as an like a design device, so that it looks more dynamic by giving the this diagonal line here, space here. So if I play back, so now you can see the sphere disappears out of the frame. That could be fine if that's what you want, but if you want more than that, something more than that, and you can if you want to show the sphere until the end without having without the ball leaving the frame, then you can, of course, just like the first camera type, you can animate the camera, and then you can animate this aim control, so that you can always target the sphere. But also what you can do is, let's say, yeah, here, let's say I'm just aiming at, let's say, this is what I want. Maybe something like this. It's basically this one, because there is an aim control. It's definitely uh, it probably works. I mean, it definitely works better if the object remains in the center. And so for this one, I can simply click this one and shift click this sphere, and then let's say parent it, and then let's play back. So it's parented. The aim control follows the sphere. And there's a lot of motions here, up and down. That's because of the sphere. And oh, before I explain that, let's say if you see it here, now the aim control is moved to underneath the snowball geometry, is parented to that, and creating new hierarchy. And so if you don't want to see, let's go back to the first frame. If you don't want to see a lot of motions here, like this one, because it's parented, so like it kind of like rolls around together. So if you don't want to see that, I put that back into the group camera group again. And if that's not what you want, if the your object is not rotating like this sphere, simply parenting it would be fine. But if not, if the case is like this one, then what you can do is you can constrain this aim control to the sphere. But before I do that, like let's constrain, if you constrain, so like you can constrain using this one. Let me show you how to. First, I mean, before I show you another option, I mean, using same constraint, but so for this one, we don't want the rotation of the sphere affects the aim controllers, right? So what we can do is point, and then maintain offset on. If you don't leave it on, if you turn this one off, then this aim control will jump to the center of the sphere. So for this one, I just leave it on and then apply. So now there's a constraint happen. Oh, but let me go back. Let me undo, because I want to make sure that which one I selected first. So as I suspected, I selected aim control first. This shouldn't be the case. I mean, the order of the selecting object is very important in parenting and constraint. In constraint case, you have to select the controller first, and then shift select whatever it is that's being controlled second. So sphere first, select sphere first, and then select this aim control second. And then I'm going to apply the constraint again. So you see being constrained, the camera is being constrained. So let's see what happens. So the aim control, the follow sphere nicely. Okay, this is something you can do. And little more advanced option would be, just tiny bit little more advanced option would be, if you see this, if you select this aim control, now there's an remember this aim control's translate is what rotates the camera, but then now this translate is constrained, so which means you can no longer animate this. So what you can do is, if you wanna still use constraint and then being able to animate the aim control, you will have to make a group or something like that, like group like aim control itself, and then you should constrain that group to a sphere, and then you will be able to animate the aim control as well. So this exercise, I can maybe show you that later. But for this exercise, this ends here, and then I'll see you in the another video tutorial. I may make another one to show you just how uh, you can use animation path, and also what you can do with camera movements and all that stuff. But I'd like to remind you that uh, this composing scenes, where this, like how you define the frame, and then um, where and how, in which angle and which shot you frame your subject matter is the part of storytelling. And whether you use this shot as establishing shot, or maybe more dynamic, making more dynamic and dramatic, and it's all up to you. But keep in mind that it's part of the storytelling. So try to make as interesting as possible and as appealing as possible to the audiences. So trying to see it as an audience, and then see if it interests you.